Well, hello again. Do you remember me? It's Henry Manwaring. We're going to tell you a little more of our story with my wife, Sarah. And we've got a few more kids now. Some of them grew up. Here's Herbert, George, and Ellen you met last time, and Mary, and David, and Jesse. We had another little boy named William, but he died. So we've got these kids. Well, we had joined the church, and we wanted to go to America. And we thought about, we were trying to figure out a way. Herbert got a job working for Mr. Walker. It was a good job. And when we wanted to go to America, Mr. Walker said, "No, Herbert, you can't leave. You're a good worker, and you just have to stay here and work for me. So, you can't leave." Well, we kind of thought about it for a while, and we went to church, and guess what? I was kind of the bishop of our church. So I was kind of conducting a meeting one day. Let's go to church, everybody. Now, sit down, be quiet, and we're going to have a nice church meeting. And at one of our church meetings, Herbert stood up and said, "We've been saving money for a long time, and I believe we need to go to America, and I would like to go, but I just don't know if I'm going to make it." And something happened. Sister Nancy Bate stood up and started talking. And she sat down, and everybody said, "Whoa, what was that?" And since I was kind of in charge of our church meeting, I said, "That was somebody speaking in tongues. That's a spiritual gift. Can anybody translate?" Nobody raised their hands, so Sister Nancy Bates stood up again, and she translated what she just said. "Brother Herbert, thus saith the Lord, if you will be faithful, you shall go to the land of Zion. You shall have many trials and difficulties to meet, but if you remain faithful, you shall be the means of bringing your father, mother, brothers, and sisters to this land." Okay, all right, we're going to find a way. We're going to go to America. Well, this is what we did. My father and mother and I talked about it, and I lived with this Mr. Walker that I was working for. I just lived with him because that's kind of how it works. I worked on his farm. And so Mom and Dad told me, "Herbert, tell your employer, because he's not going to let you go. We've already asked. Tell him you need to go to town." And I said, "All right. I'll tell him I need to go to town and just ask for his permission." So what I did is I did that. But I didn't go to town. I went home. And I got my trunk. And I got it packed. And I went to America. I told my family goodbye. And my dad and I carried my trunk. Now, how do you get to America? We live in England. This is where we live. We live right here in this red spot. I'll tell you how to get to America. You've got to go from Sandbach to this train station at Crewe, it's called. And you ride the train all the way up here to Liverpool. That's called Liverpool. And that is where the ships are that take you to America. Well, a few years ago, Grandpa had a reunion, and he made a game about me carrying my trunk to Liverpool. We got to get to Liverpool because that's where the ship is. So we start at Sandbach. We got my trunk. My dad and I, we carried it from our home in Sandbach, England. So this is the game. You got to carry the trunk. So here's Leah carrying the trunk. She's playing the game. And you got to go to Crewe. That's the train station. And here, I told my dad goodbye. I hope I see you again. I hope I can get you to America. And he went back home. And I got my trunk and I got on that train. And then we got to still carry the trunk on the train. We got to go all the way to Liverpool. So here's the game still. There's Uncle Derek and James playing the trunk game. See Uncle Derek over there carrying my trunk. And James says, "Carry that trunk, Dad. Here I come." And we got all the way to Liverpool. The docks at Liverpool is where all the ships are. I rode on the ship, the John Bright. And it was taking quite a few saints to America. So we got to the ship. This is not a pirate ship. Don't look at that part. This is just a ship. And I got there with my trunk, and I was ready to go. And we get assigned a berth in the side of the ship, and you know, that's where you sleep. They're not very comfortable. So I got my blanket, and I kind of put it down on there. And I got my kind of robe. And that was my bed. Okay, I'm ready to sail to America. All right, I'm all set. And it was a long trip. We sailed across the ocean. Oh, ships don't make that noise. Here we go. We're sailing to America. And we sail all the way across the ocean. All the way across the ocean. All the way across the ocean until we get to... all the way down here. Here we come. We're coming. New York City. I made it to America. I've never been to America before. I only heard about it. Well, now we're in America. How do you get across the plains? Well, you know that. By covered wagon. That's what we do. We got to get a covered wagon and go to Utah. I didn't have any friends or any family with me. I was just 17 years old. And so I got a job kind of as a teamster and just would kind of help drive the wagons. And that was how I got across. And I kind of met up with some the young men, boys who would kind of help drive the wagons. They were kind of playing games, so I'd kind of talk to them. And during that time, I met a guy named Bill Stewart. And he said, "Hey, I'll hire you. Can you be a clerk? I'm carrying some goods. I'm carrying some bacon across the plains." And so I said, "Sure, oh, I'd love to." So I got my little trunk and I put it in his wagon. And I found a friend to go across the plains with. And that was good. And I helped with all kinds of stuff. We would hitch up the teams to the wagon in the morning. I would help build a fire. I would get wood for the fire. I carried water from the stream because we gotta have water. And I would help fix dinner too. Got some food here. And I ran out of food a little bit, but the boys, the other teamsters, they helped me out. They were good people. Bill Stewart, they helped me out, and I was glad to be with them. They were some nice guys. There was one of our fellas, he'd go out each day and just kind of, while I drove the wagon, he would go hunting, and he might get some deer and bring them back, and he would share them with everybody in the whole camp. And also, the Indians would come into the camp, and they would bring things that maybe they could trade, and we could buy some food from them or different things that we need. It was kind of nice. Well, let me tell you, one day we had some Indians in the camp, and one of the Indians came in and said, "Hey, I'd trade you some horses for a white girl. I want to have a white girl to be my wife." And Apollos Driggs, he was another teamster. He thought the Indian was joking, and he said, "Oh, sure, you'd like wife for your, yes, we trade horses for wife. Here's a nice white girl." And we had a kind of a laugh about that. The Indian wasn't joking, just so you know. He came back, and he brought a bunch of horses, and said, here, I wish to trade for a wife. I want to trade for a wife. And Apollo said, no, you can't trade. You can't buy a white woman. That wasn't what, no, we're not trading for a wife, dude. It was a joke, okay? It was a joke. And the Indian went away kind of mad. That was a bad thing. Because we reached a camp. We found a nice place to camp. And guess what? That Indian came back with a bunch of other Indians, and they took our oxen. All of the oxen, almost all the oxen that we were using to pull our wagons, the Indians stole them, okay? You don't try to joke around with Indians if they're being serious. You don't need to do that. That's kind of mean. They stole our oxen. It's like, oh, now what? The oxen pull the wagon. What are we supposed to do now? So we had a bunch of wagons, and we just kind of went kind of slowly with the few oxen that we had left, because we didn't have much left. And eventually we reached a point where there was some oxen from pioneers that came before us, you know, and their oxen had gotten tired, and so they left them at some kind of way places along the trail. And as we got there, Brigham Young sent a telegram, that's like a text, and said, hey, bring all the oxen you can with you. And guess what? We needed a ton of oxen. And so we were able to get some more oxen, thankfully, and we didn't have any more trouble with the Indians. And we got our wagons finally into Utah. And I finally made it to Utah, and oh my goodness, that was a long walk. Well, I have an uncle in Utah. It's my dad's brother. And so, when we got to Utah, we came into Salt Lake City, and I walked down to Springville. And that was where my uncle lived. And he said, oh, Herbert, you made it. How are all the folks over in England? I said, they're doing great. I got to help them get over here. Can I get a job? I'll work for you, or I'll work for somebody. He said, yeah, absolutely. And I worked for him for a little while, and I worked around. Let me tell you one other thing that happened. One day, I was working, and I was outside. Have a sec. And I was working in potatoes. Do you guys eat potatoes? Because they're pretty good. I had my boss's horse, and I was working out in the field, and I could see a storm coming. And let me tell you something. Now, hang on. The internet keeps restarting. Guess what happened? Boom. That was lightning. Did you see it strike the ground? Did you see that lightning? A few miles away, a doctor, see that? Was just coming out of a house, and he saw that lightning. So, wow, that looked like it hit the ground. I'm just gonna go over there and look. I'll just see, because doctors don't work in hospitals. They just go to your house and they kind of help you. So we just kind of walked over, and he saw something. There was me lying on the ground. Oh my gosh. Oh, and there's a horse over here. Oh, the horse is dead. Oh dear. Oh, I can't. Are you okay? Hey, oh my gosh. I don't think he's alive. Quick, let's get some help. He got some other folks to come help him. And they came back and found me. And they got some water, threw it on me. And they gave me a blessing. They gave me a priesthood blessing. And after a little bit, I started to wake up. And I said, what happened? And he said, you got struck by lightning. Are you okay? Did you feel all right? And I had a big burn on my face and kind of down my chest. And so they brought me back to the house, and they laid me down, and they got me some food. And the doctor helped make a kind of a big bandage for my chest, and it healed. It was all right. That worked out, and I had to stay in bed for a little while because I was just tired. It hurts getting struck by lightning, so I got to do just a little bit of work, a little more, and then a little more until I could kind of get my strength back and feel better. Whew. I'm glad I'm all right. Well, that was an adventure. But I got some money saved, and I'm glad I'm still alive. I got some money saved to help get my family to bring them to Utah, and I went and I talked to Brigham Young. And I said, Brigham Young, I have some money, just a little bit. I have $150. I need to send my family to Utah and bring them here to me. Can I use the Perpetual Immigration Fund? Brigham looked right at me and said, Brother Manwaring, will you repay the money that we use to get your family here? I said, yes, I will. Take this money and let's send for my family. If you will help me, I can get them here. And he said, okay, send for your family. I said, okay, here comes my family. They're coming. They're going to come.